This is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joie.
Brought to you by Audible. Stay tuned for a special offer at the end of the show. Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joie, and today is Wednesday, March 9th, 2022, and I have the excellent and awesome TK Bay here with me. Hi, TK. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. It feels just like we saw each other a couple of days ago. I don't know why.
I think it's because we did. Yeah, let's
Yes,
be
we
real
did.
here. Yes, you couldn't make a group podcast last week with us at Mobile Congress in Barcelona, so you're here now.
Unfortunately, I do apologize, but I'm happy that I'm able to make it finally. Yeah, for sure. It was just crazy. Barcelona was exciting, crazy. Everything was just spaced out everywhere, and there wasn't enough time. And I didn't stay till the last day. I actually left on Thursday morning, so I missed out on the last extra. I should have stayed an extra.
It was very interesting to get back into a conference full on abroad. There's two things here. I went to Europe in October for a Porsche thing, and it was 3 days, and it was, very handled. We just didn't really have freestyle, we didn't really do our own thing. But this time it was like it used to be. And so this is my first time doing a trade show since CS 2020, because I missed CS this year.
Yes,
last minute, I decided, you know what? All my gigs got kind of canceled, so I'm not going to be making any money, but just spending money. Even though I had a sponsor, I decided it'd be safer with Omicron to stick home. I regret it now because everybody seemed to have a good time. But anyway, the point is,
it was a different CES for sure. Not the CES. Let's just say this: you're not missing much. I think next year will be the CES of comeback of all of us.
Yeah, we'll be there for that. But this was really the first time I'm doing a trade show again, and the second time for me to go abroad. But the first time where you really have the double whammy, jet lag plus a conference. It's a hard one. And it hit me hard.
Back to back and double and triple book conferences.
Yeah.
That was the weird part about this one. Scheduling was absolutely done badly between different and so we had at one point multiple events
exactly
existing at the same time that we would need to be there, and just we don't have that duplicate copy of us running around. But yeah. No, crazy.
I think that it was a little weird in that way, but also I just got so much more jet lag than I did in October when I went to this Porsche thing. I just was tired and I couldn't get over it. And by the time I did, it was like the end of the show, and I felt like I'd missed out on a bunch of stuff. But overall, I think it worked out well. We did a good group podcast. It was fun.
Yep.
Oppo was my sponsor and they were awesome. We got to talk about the Oppo Find X5 Pro and about the Realme GT2 Pro quite a bit. We also talked about the Honor Magic 4 Pro quite a bit, and we did
Sexy Time Honor Magic Pro.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't checked that out, check out Miriam's. Oh my God, the reel on the Sexy Time.
Yeah, the reel that I have on my Instagram about the Honor, was it V or 5? Which is, I think it's V because it's
it's
V,
the
right?
V. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
a lot of people are saying 5, and I'm
a
like, it's not. But yeah, look, the bottom line is we covered almost everything, but there's one thing we didn't cover, which I want to talk to you about after the news, which is the Poco X4 Pro 5G, which, I didn't really get to start using properly until a few days ago, really. So I know you've had it for a while like me, and you have a YouTube video, which I'll link in the show notes. So let's talk about that a little bit. But first, Elephant is in the room, and that was yesterday's Apple event. So I want to chat about that with you.
Yep.
And then the other thing I want to talk with you about, because now you're an EV convert like me. I got you hooked.
Absolutely. Loving every minute of it. Yes, go on.
I kind of want to talk about the Volkswagen ID Buzz, which was finally revealed. We knew it was coming. We knew what it was about. It is the Volkswagen microbus, the EV microbus. So think hippie flower power bus from the old days, that continued.
That used to be my school bus when I was a kid, by the way, just for reference. The hippie old Volkswagen bus, that was how I used to sit in the trunk with the open on the back. They had a little gate. So I have memories with Volkswagen.
Exactly. A lot of people do, and a lot of Americans or North Americans don't know this, but they continue making generations of the microbus in Europe. The last one we got was the Eurovan in the late 90s, early 2000s here in the US. That's called called the T4, the Transporter Generation 4. The previous generation T3 was the Westphalia, the one everybody knows here in North America, the really boxy one with the pop top. And then the T5 we never got. We never got the T6. There's a T7 now coming, which will be a hybrid, and there is the ID Buzz, which will basically be the EV version of from the ground up, same platform as the ID4 and ID3. So now that you're like me, a Model 3 owner and stuff, I think you probably have some thoughts. And I am a Volkswagen Eurovan, so T4 owner. I have a camper version of that, so I have a bit of a investment in this one in a way, because I think that I'm probably going to put a deposit down when the US model comes out.
Nice.
Anyway, so Apple, Apple. I mean, nothing surprising really. The leaks were pretty accurate, but at the same time, man, there's so much to talk about. Let's start with the iPhone. The SE.
SE 2022. Yeah, they didn't call it 2. They just called it the iPhone SE.
It's not really the 2. It's really the 3, because there was the original SE, then the SE in 2020, now the SE 2022, and I kind of want to call it iPhone SE 5G because in Android land you add 5G to anything that has 5G. Still, which is weird, by the way. Like by now, you'd think
a little bit. Well, yeah, you're right. I mean, the reality is 90% of actually all flagships have it. Even most mid-rangers have it, and we're starting to see it even become more affordable at the entry level on the Android side. But on Apple side, yeah, this is the first SE that supports 5G because of the A15, but definitely living up to its reputation of being affordable, small, compact. Still surprisingly has Touch ID, which is like a unicorn type of a feature for Apple land. But it definitely looks very. It's keeping the looks with more powerful internals, and I feel like that's the best thing. And a little bit of a bump on price, but of course we have 5G now.
Yeah, I think the summary is that this is an iPhone SE 2020 with a bump of chip, basically from an A13 to an A15 Bionic with 5G,
which makes sense, yeah.
Only sub 6, no millimeter wave, which is the only iPhone that only has sub 6, by the way, of all the 5G iPhones ever made. And it has an improved camera system. I think nobody's really tried to figure out yet whether it's a hardware and a software thing. The software for sure, because that comes with a Bionic A15. But I can tell you that Theo, my spouse, has an SE 2020, that low light performance just doesn't really quite live up to even the iPhone of its time, the 11, right? Well, so I'm hoping that this 2022 model has a slightly better actual hardware camera, so that Bionic goodness of the ISP can really match the at least base iPhone 13. It won't have the in-body stabilization, but it does have OIS. So, we still have wireless charging, we still have OIS, we still have a single camera in the back. I was kind of hoping that somehow...
Yeah, I was like hoping this is the year where they decide to give us at least a secondary sensor, since everything has 3 sensors now or something. So, it's a combination, right? I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at an SE, or even when we look at other companies, when they create a more affordable, smaller version of their devices, it's a tailored experience, right? So Apple has to kind of leverage existing hardware, which is why we're getting the iPhone, the look of the SE 2020 model. But the benefit of the A15, because that's the chip that they have, right? All of their devices now are running it, so it's more affordable for them to put in. On paper, the sensor on the back still looks like it's a 12 megapixel sensor, so I'm not sure if it's a new sensor that's going to give us better low light. I didn't see any information about the aperture on it, but the overall performance, I'm hoping, will be better, just for the fact of having the A15 in there to be able to process and get us better low light performance. So I'm with you. I would love to see, at least, like you said, match 13. Like the 13 base model. I mean,
we
makes
know it
more
won't,
sense,
since it doesn't have in-body stabilization, but at the same time, so it was really interesting to me is that the SE 2020, when you look at that camera module, it is in part, like, it's a combination of lens and sensor from the 8, which is the body came from, the body shape of the SE is the iPhone 8.
For this second SE,
I'm talking about
right.
the 2020. So that 2020 had a camera that was a kind of a mix between the iPhone XR and the iPhone 8 in terms of hardware. Then with the Bionic 13 doing the ISP goodness, kind of elevating it a bit from the XR and from the 8, right? And this, I think it's going to take a little while to find out, but it either is the same thing or they've maybe grabbed the old iPhone 12 series sensor, which didn't have in-body stabilization, put that in there, with the optics of it. But the bottom line has OIS and it has that Bionic 15 for some hopefully better night photography. Because the one thing that the SE 2020 really did miss out on is it didn't have the night mode that the 11 had. And I think that was a hardware limitation at the time, but I'm hoping that they remedied that and that maybe it's done in software purely or whatever it is. But maybe it can do the multi-stack framing stuff that it needs to do. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I think that's the biggest thing a lot of us want is the improvements on the software and processing. The host power is definitely there, but we're going to have to see because the announcement, as we were talking about, and obviously just happened a day ago, it's barely like fresh news, and I think it's going to be available very soon. I like the color options that they stuck to the same colors that we had in the past. The design is very much the same, which in a certain way, I think the iPhone 8 or the design of the iPhone 8 is living on one more generation of the SE. But having 5G on it, hopefully obviously better battery life on this one as well.
Yeah, bigger battery
having
apparently.
4K running. Yeah, which they need to. So this is where the IC 2020 had some concerns at the beginning where battery life wasn't as good. Because it was a smaller form factor. It was, I think, the first, think of it as first gen. This one, they're making it better. And of course, with the 5G, sub 6 is actually the better way to go. Because I can imagine millimeter wave would be, how fast can you go from 100 to 0 would be more of a conversation. But it's exciting. I'm glad they're keeping it. And I'm hoping more companies.
But it speaks to Apple's power as a company because I got an email from George over at Verizon. With the deals, right?
Sure,
and I was like, thanks, George. I appreciate the email. I love George. He's such a good guy. And and I'm thinking to myself, at the time, I didn't know if it didn't have millimeter. I'm like, it's got to have millimeters. Verizon's like going nuts about this thing. But it doesn't. And Verizon is still going nuts about this thing. What other phone do you know on Verizon lineup doesn't have millimeter wave and they're going nuts about it? There's a few, I think, in their prepaid.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say I was going to say TCL for one.
But you know what I'm saying? Do you know what I'm saying? This is a thing. This is very rarely do you see. They impose millimeter wave on Motorola phones every time, right? If they have 5G.
Yep.
If you want to sell a Moto phone on Verizon, Moto better put millimeter wave in there, whereas Apple was like, nope. And I think it's the right decision. I think, I would have liked to see them replace the display. I would have liked a ultra wide camera, but if you think about it, it's so cheap for them to continue using that iPhone 8 design, continue using that panel, continue using a lot of the guts really, then upgrading few select parts. I'm a little bummed that it's $30 more because it's that weird number, right? It's like, it just brings it up to a price where you're like, you can't have that $399 sweet spot anymore because you're now at $429.
It has that it's a $30 bump.
And realistically, if you want to use an iPhone, frankly, I see this with Theo. We got them the 128 gig, which was the mid version of the previous one, thinking that's plenty of room, and they're running out. And so we're going to get the 256. And I looked at that. It's $579. At that point, maybe buy an iPhone 12 refurb or something.
Or even an 11 refurb. At that point, you're looking at pricing realistically.
Although you're not getting the A15 then. And that's the thing. No. The support on this is 5 years, right? Yeah. Think about that. That's what's also killer about this phone. Now, if it was my money, I would buy a Pixel 5a right now or wait for the 6a. And we're going to talk about the rumors on the 6a in a minute. But I think that's because I'm an Android user. But, and of course, I want an ultra wide and I want an OLED display. But, the iPhone does have something the Pixel doesn't have, and that's wireless charging, which, has very few phones except for maybe the TCL 20 Pro last year that had wireless charging below $500 right now in the US. I can't think of anything else. Can you?
As far as wireless charging, that was a US phone.
Even foreign, think about it. Xiaomi and BBK Group at this price point do not do wireless charging.
Absolutely.
So who does that leave us
OnePlus or
with?
anybody.
Samsung, maybe Samsung.
Samsung, maybe on the A series. I would probably maybe some of their A series. I'd have to double check.
I'd have to check too because I have a feeling the A series don't have it.
Yeah. So I mean, I think wireless charging is obviously we were seeing more advancements on there, especially when we talked about MWC last week. Honor walking in with a 100-watt wireless charger.
Wow.
I was like, wow. I mean, come on. Like they're seriously pushing the limits. On budget devices, I feel like that's one of the first things they decide to cut because it's a nice to have, but it's not needed. And especially when we get a chance to talk more about the Poco, we got 67-watt charging on that. So it's hard to kind of say I can justify a 15-watt charger or a 10-watt charger as opposed to the 67 wire that's included in the box. So I feel like you're right. It's a combination and it's a unique feature for Apple, at least for that price point.
I think it comes down to more of a cultural and not cultural, but it kind of like where you live and where you operate. Like I look at our lives, Theo and I, we have a wireless charging pad in our car, right? So it's way more convenient to plunk down the phone on the wireless charger at 10 watt than it is to go digging for a custom 67 watt Xiaomi car charger, plug it in the cigarette port, right? Like that's my point. And it's like, you can say, well, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you plug it into the mains at home for 5 minutes before you leave. But that's not the point. The point is the convenience of being able to say, oh, I'm running a little low. Let's put the phone down for half an hour and you get a bit of a charge on a drive, right? I think more and more people have basically built-in wireless charging in their cars. And when you have that, then, you want a phone that supports it. And if you had a phone that had it and you switch to one that doesn't, you really notice it. Yeah. It's like, to me, it's one of those things. Like if you look at my evolution of ownership of a phone, once I had wireless charging, it wasn't critical, but I used it enough that I didn't want to give it up on the next phone.
Yeah.
Right?
No.
And so when Google did that, when they dropped wireless charging, they had it on the Nexus 4 and I think even the Nexus
6. I want to say the 6 was the last
one. The 5?
One.
Definitely the 5.
The 5 for sure. 6
was the last one.
I want to say the 6 before they went with Huawei.
The 6, the big Moto one, right? Yeah. And then they dropped it on the 5X and the 6 Pro or 6P. And I was just like, what have you done?
So I will say this. I would give Google a pass on the 6P, mostly because
the design.
That phone was, not only that was a hot pocket of anything. Like, you do not want to add more heat. That phone was, as you know, the A10 was, it's a point in history of the hottest chips on the market. That phone could definitely not live without the wireless, but it is a little bit weird when you see companies that carry it for some time and then they just out of the blue take it out.
And then the Pixel, the original, didn't have it either. And the Pixel 2 didn't have it either. It wasn't until the 3 series that we got it back. And I couldn't wait. I was like, oh my God, finally, like I'd been living with wireless charging for so many Nexuses that I was just like, oh, and before that with Nokia, right? On the PureViews.
It's one of those. It's, as you said it yourself, it is a very nice thing to have once you have it. Actually, I think I mentioned it even in my video about the one thing I wish they had, because I would put it in the car and I would have to find a wire and so on. And I ended up not charging it in the car, but it's a functional thing. Wireless charging, even though slower, still helps top you off and make sure that you're kind of, running. And I have chargers at least in this room. I have one in front of me where we're talking right now on camera. I have one integrated into my mouse pad for gaming, so I just put my phone next to my mouse on my mouse pad. I also have a standing one, and if you remember the Razer one with the RGB lights going on, it's still one of my favorite ones. Convertible, like I keep it flat. I charge my devices on it. Again, not intended to be the main source of charging, but it's definitely nice to have. And if I don't really want to worry about too much about, if I just want to top it off a little bit, it's easy. And our Teslas have it, 2 chargers that are built in.
Yeah, absolutely. I even have it in my Volkswagen camper van. I have what brand is that? It's one of those, phone holders.
An Anchor or something?
Yeah, it might be an Anchor. Okay. It's a phone holder, right? And I've got it's got a Qi coil in it, so I just plug it in, and like as soon as I put my phone, and the head unit is Bluetooth, so it's pretty much a wireless experience. Putting it on the actual, phone stand. Or phone holder. Here I have a Pixel stand, the original, on my desk. That's my main wireless charging for my Pixel 6 Pro. I use it overnight mostly. Yeah. And then I have a OnePlus / BBK Group / AirVook or whatever it's called, AirVook.
Yeah, the fast one that we got last year, the 50-watt charge wireless charger.
Yeah, the 50 watt. So that's the one I have for the OnePlus 9 Pro, I think. No, it came with the OnePlus 9. You're right, 9 Pro. The 8
so 9 Pro had the upgraded. The 8 Pro had one, but it wasn't as fast. I think it was like 25
I have one
or
of
30
those
watt.
two. Can't remember which. I think it's the newest one.
If it has the cable that detaches, is the new one. Because that one, what
It's
they did
got
is they
the
sent
cable that detaches, so it is the new one.
It's the latest one.
And I have a
last year.
Xiaomi one as well somewhere in my house that's super fast too for their fast charging. When the Mi 10 series came out,
Mi 10, yeah.
the
Back in the old Mi
flagship.
series.
Yeah. But that one, so it's interesting. That one actually works with Xiaomi and Huawei.
Oh,
Yeah, so this is my theory.
because I thought
Xiaomi
Huawei had
and
their own
Huawei
proprietary
have
thing.
shared wired fast charging for a while now. This is not well documented, but it does seem to work. And wireless too. I'm not sure you're getting the full enchilada, but it's actually interesting. And then, of course, we know, especially now with the Oppification of OnePlus, but we know that Realme, Oppo, and OnePlus support SuperVOOC and AirVOOC. And here's the kicker. Vivo has a different thing.
Oh, okay.
So if you take a Vivo wired fast charger at least and put it on a OnePlus or an Oppo, no go. I mean, you get charging, you just don't get max speed. And vice versa, if you take like a Oppo or OnePlus fast charger, like 67 watt brick, and you plug it into a Vivo, say, an X70 Pro Plus or something, you're not getting the 67 watt. So I find that so mysterious to me. But of
that
course,
part of the company doesn't it's like a weird thing. You're right. Oppo, Realme, and OnePlus, very much cohesive, copacetic, a lot of love there. Vivo and iQOO very much seems like, same umbrella, different room. You don't get in through the same door for some reason.
Exactly. And I was just going to say iQ's wired chargers are compatible with Vivo, of course. It's really interesting how that's panned out. But anyway, back to the iPhone. I'm just glad there's another option. I understand Apple, like 5G was getting necessary. So many carriers are dropping 3G and stuff. You can't just, you need choices. And
especially with 5 years of support, they knew at some point they were it's going to cut off.
Yeah.
So they needed to include the technology. But I'm glad they made the right choice of performance to power management so that it doesn't kill the battery.
But I was kind of hoping that they would rework the chassis just a little bit. Like I still figured the home button would stay, and Theo really likes the home button and the fingerprint sensor. They really don't like the Face ID stuff. So, that kind of makes sense to kind of keep that core audience of old school iPhone users who don't like to change things too much happy. But I would have expected them to maybe try to switch to an OLED that fills up a bit more of the chassis,
Yeah. I was hoping less.
Somehow do an oval cutout in the back with an ultra wide. That would have been nice to have an ultra wide, but hey, at the same time, I know that this economically makes the most sense. You're reusing essentially the chassis in the panel, and you're changing the guts around.
Yeah, it's the PCB that the motherboard is updated. You get the new chip processor,
and
the
you can
modems.
You can upgrade the camera module because it's also pretty flexible. Because if you get one the same size, it just fits right in there. So I think it's a good one. The price, I kind of wish I'd be able to keep the $399, and it gets really pricey when you get up to that more storage.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. When we say 430 or 429, we're talking about the entry level base model
64
storage,
gig, yeah.
Which I think we should be. That was another thing I would like. I would like this. We are, I think, at the point where 64 should not be the standard. I think we should have moved already to 128.
But that's true for Android as well, frankly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Devices that have SD cards at the low end budget net size, I can understand a little bit more because at least you have options. But when you have no storage capability, expandability, and there's pretty much what you're getting is what you have. Who is going to live in a 64 gigabyte iPhone? I mean, seriously, if you take enough pictures just within the first 6 months or so, that phone, you hit a roadblock. For me, I get the phones mostly to review. So when I'm picking them up, I don't really care too much about the storage. I realize, Theo may be using it more so that you do want to get the storage that works there.
We got them 128 on the 2020, but they're still running out. So it's going to be 256 next.
I think, for my S22 Ultra, I did the same. I went to 512 this time. I can't believe I said that's 512, but 256 I was actually running out of.
Yeah,
I use it so much.
4K. Yeah.
4K 60 all the way. That's how I shoot.
60.
That's how you shoot. Always. If you're ever recording any content on a display and you want to be able to have the flexibility after, record it in 4K 60. Even if you produce it at 30, have the flexibility of refresh rate.
Yeah, it's like Marquez recording at 8K with his red cameras and down sampling to 4K. Life is difficult here.
It is.
But I think this is good. I just wish the price had been kept at $399 and maybe even if the chassis had to remain the same, maybe the panel had to be improved somewhat somehow. But hey, you know what? iPhone users are going to be happy with this. And like
it's a 5G tax, or the Apple tax, for the
I
lack
suppose,
of a better term.
both.
Yeah.
But anyway,
then of course
let's move on.
I was going to say there was also the tablets that they did a little bit more improvements there. I was excited to see that part. So
the iPad Air got an M1 chip, no surprise, but it got USB Type-C at the same time. Yes, yet another Apple device that had Lightning gone to the dustbin of eternity. I'm so happy.
One step closer. One step closer. I just want the 14 to come out. We finally changed the port. We're going USB-C.
I think they're going to go portless next. That's absolutely not happening. I used to think that, but I'm at this point where I feel like they're waiting to go portless, and it's gone. You know what surprised me actually, and I could be, maybe it is. I haven't looked at the specs, but the iPhone SE 2022 doesn't have MagSafe in the back.
No,
like they could have, right? That would have been smart somehow.
It has to be a tailored enough experience to make you want the iPhone, the 13
you have to pay
mini
extra,
even, right? Yeah, it has to be a step. So there's that, the mini, the standard, the Pro Max. So now it's a lineup, and this is like an entryway, small form factor, smaller display. You go to the mini is technically bigger display, and you still are able to step up. But again, I'm glad that they're able to continue the life of the SE series.
So here's what I'm thinking is going to happen. Maybe not on the 14th, but definitely the next one. We're going to see a MagSafe only iPhone. And the way it's going to work is it's going to have ultra wideband for the communication if you want data transfer. And so there'll be a MagSafe puck that has ultra wideband for data for the few people who still do data wired, because I actually think on an iPhone, you don't necessarily even need that anymore. Like if you have a Mac, you're going to use AirDrop, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so basically, I don't think you necessarily need wired data, but wired charging is necessary. And they're going to be so fast with their wireless, like they're going to increase the wireless speed. You know, if they go to 30 watt wired, it's faster than anything an iPhone has ever experienced. Like, I mean, wireless, not wired. So 30 watt wired MagSafe charging would basically make it such that you don't need an iPhone with a port. And I think that's where they're going to go. Because MagSafe is kind of like the gateway drug. I think MagSafe is brilliant. I kind of love that Nubia made a MagSafe compatible phone that they showed at MWC that actually uses all the MagSafe accessories. Like, it's crazy. I mean, it's just Qi wireless charging with some magnets. Anyone can do this. So I'm surprised
the technology is...
Although Android phone makers haven't jumped on yet. Like, this could become a non-standard standard, you know?
I think the reality is, I think with wireless charging, if I'm not mistaken, I think the what's it called, the S22 and S21 Ultra were the magnets actually do align, that you're able to
a little bit,
a little bit. It wasn't meant for it, but I think at the end of the day, I'm sure if nothing else, with everything else being I say complementing or basically copied with inspiration kind of a thing, I'm sure we'll see something very similar to that. Wireless, I'm trying to remember what company. There was a company that did a demo, I think it was a few years ago, where they did a device that was entirely portless. It's going to be a massive change, and I think hopefully it was amazing. Yeah, and I think what we want to see is maybe a transition point to that. But USB-C, it's the standard, and they're starting to adopt it more. So we'll see. Maybe the 14 wouldn't be the year of USB-C, but more of the portless. Either way, once Apple does it, everybody else is going to carry. So, God help us. Let's just say,
no, but look, I think there's room for it. Like, I don't think that's what I want, but I think that, look, wireless charging is getting so fast that having a puck that's magnetically attached to the back of your phone, if that puck is USB-C on it, which Apple might not do, but Anker will, you're done. Like, you're done. You get 30 watt charging, no problem. It's convenient. You can have that sitting down on your desk, just like with a normal cable. Why not? So I think we're going to see that. And you just said once Apple does it, the rest of the world will follow, and USB-C will really not be relevant on a phone anymore. Now
we finally got everything USB-C. There were things released last year with micro still for some reason.
But see,
like kills me.
This is kind of why I think the Android world should bite the bullet and adopt MagSafe, the magnet placement, like Nubia did with that phone at MWC, because then now you have Qi and MagSafe compatibility, and all of a sudden you can start using iPhone accessories and vice versa, right? Yep. In the same way as Anker's making a ton of MagSafe stuff. I love Anker. I have to keep mentioning them. Sorry. But, it's just like, I feel like this would be a smart thing to do because it would kind of standardize things, and you could still have USB-C on that puck. Like USB-C doesn't really go away. It still becomes a transport for things, Now, they updated the iPhone 13s with green colors too. I'm trying to think what else before we jump into the Mac. That's it, really. I just want to quickly touch on the Macs because, there's one, because it's kind of an amazing kind of beast. And I want to preface this by saying they canceled the 27-inch iMac, completely. And that's my kind of favorite Mac. I have one in front of me. It's an Intel one, obviously. It's a little slow it's 3 years old compared to my MacBook Air.
So is my MacBook Pro still on the i9. I'm still running the last generation of an i.
I have the M1 MacBook Air, and that thing is just running circles around my Intel, even though my Intel is a pretty high spec. And it just tells you where we're gone in 3 years. So I was hoping that since we saw a 24-inch iMac with M1 last year, that we would get a 27 this year sometime. They have been very clear they have one more ARM-based, or Apple Silicon-based Mac to release before the transition is complete. And it's a Mac Pro. They've said that publicly during the event. So we know there's no longer going to be an iMac 27. Unless they kind of count the iMac as one item and are going to update the 24-inch model with a 27-inch model or 30-inch or whatever the new screen size will be. But basically right now, if you're in my position where you need to upgrade your iMac 27, there's really very few options because that display on the iMac 27 is really good. It's 5K. And to get that display as a standalone now, you can buy that. They have a studio display for $1,500 or $1,600, which is
about $1,600.
It's the same exact panel as on the iMac 5K panel. It's a beautiful IPS panel. It's super high res. But the reason it's so expensive, I think, is because, it's Apple, but it's got an A13 Bionic in it to manage the webcam, which is a 12 megapixel sensor, and the audio, because it's got a really and I don't know if you've heard the MacBook Pros with M1 chips, their audio is incredible, those speakers. So I expect that monitor to have really good audio. So you get that, and you get a USB-C hub in there. I mean, you get a whole bunch of stuff that's managed by this A13 Bionic, but that's the same price as an 27-inch iMac, just the monitor alone. So if you're trying to replace it
and not customized, remember this is not the monitor with the special.
No, this is not the
the
HDR one, right? So I think that's a little steep. And you're going to say you combine that with a Mac Mini, but a good Mac Mini is going to cost you, $799 to $999. And so now you're talking about a lot more than an iMac when you combine those two. Now, some people are going to say, well, go buy a 5K display or a 4K display from LG or somebody else. But then you don't get that nice seamless integration. You don't get a webcam. You don't get good speakers.
Exactly.
So I'm just a little bummed.
Thunderbolt support and the different port. I think what Apple was trying to do here essentially is because, and once we start talking about their studio side a little bit more as well with the new offerings, it's a way for you to customize your experience as opposed to being having to go straight with just one, because they have two separate SKUs, obviously the Max and the Ultra, and those are going to give you the ability of customizing it even more. So I feel like it's more about customizing, less about combining everything into one.
But they're leaving a hole in the lineup, right? Because right now, to replace this iMac, the only thing I can really do is buy a Mac Mini and a display that's not an Apple display. And still, I'm not getting quite the same experience. So I'm hoping that them saying the only one left to transition is the Mac Pro means that they are going to combine the iMac bigger size iMac with the existing 24-inch as one line, right? And that's still coming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why in their mind,
Yeah.
they're not thinking of it as another device. So I'm still holding some hope. But right now I was going to go out and buy a 27-inch M1 equipped or Apple Silicon iMac as soon as possible. But I think right now I'm just going to stand back. The reason for that is the Mac Studio, we really have to talk about it. It's incredibly good. Like, I love what they're doing here. Like, if I was a video editing pro, this would be the machine for me. Like, this is better than a Mac Pro Intel at this point. It's better than any of the previous iMac Pros even. If you combine that with that studio display, you're looking at, what is it?
On the base model with the Max and not the Ultra, I think you're starting around 36.
Yeah, so you get $1,600 of display and $2,000 of computer for just the M1 Max version. And then if you want to go to the M1 Ultra, you're looking at a lot more. And I think that is Mac Pro sort of territory, not iMac territory. So I'm excited about it. I think the Mac Studio is gorgeous. I've always been a big fan. I've got a Mac Cube from 2001 under my desk here that still runs great. And I've always been a fan of the idea of a really small, very powerful desktop machine from Apple. So this is it, right? This is kind of has shades of the Cylinder Mac Pro, shades of the Cube Mac, shades of, in some ways, the Mac Pro we have today with Intel, the big box, but scaled down. Of course, performance is off the charts. Did you see the numbers on that M1 Ultra chip? It's eye-watering, dude.
It is. Mouth-watering. I was just seriously. I was like, "What in the name of like? How is it? How far? How much further are they than everything else on the market? Is crazy. They were already doing it with their base M1, and then of course to go to the Max with up to 64 gigs of unified memory, and then going up to 128 on the M1 Ultras. It's crazy. I mean, and as you saw, they fused. They did the Goku and Vegeta
in one die
fusion dance.
Crazy.
We're getting the good, So for me, it's like the Gogeta of all. We got the fusion of two superpowers, and to top that off, obviously Thunderbolt ports galore, every port you want, SD card support, HDMI power, and it is still a very small footprint, and again, still just it is literally, for the lack of a better term, every editor's wet dream.
It is
the type of PC you want to get. Super fast, super small, sits very nicely on your desk, looks great, and ports everywhere. I'm like, I just wish I could afford it. I was going to say that was my only thing.
It's more to me. There's more
starting
to the
at
story.
4K.
I think the PC world is in denial. TK, like I know that a gaming machine built from scratch today is a thing. And I don't want to deny people building their own PCs. I totally understand that some people want to choose Windows. Totally get it. I used to be a game developer. I used Windows boxes to develop. I love Visual Studio. Like, don't get me wrong. I get all that. But I'm just saying, if you want to look at pure performance per buck, I think Apple with Apple Silicon and everything they keep bringing to the table is just obliterating Intel right now, and even AMD. And more importantly, I think Microsoft, this is not an Intel problem. Intel's got their own issues here, but I think this is a Microsoft problem. Microsoft really needs to jump in there and adopt Windows on ARM way more enthusiastically than they're doing. Now, I'm seeing some progress at MWC with those Lenovo laptop, with the Snapdragon.
Qualcomm is still trying to
Gen
work
3,
with as well,
right?
with the ACX Gen 3. Exactly,
Like, that's less than M1 performance. Like, Qualcomm needs to go out there and give us a desktop grade Snapdragon chip that Microsoft can use in Windows that really sings, and that doesn't exist. Like, I feel like this is Tesla all over again. The entire industry is 5 years behind. Like,
it is, and not only that, Tesla keeps improving, and they keep beating their own numbers every year, and it's like everybody else, like, well, we haven't even started.
And if you're a PC person, you're like, well, whatever, la la la, Ryzen, blah blah blah, GPU. No, look at the freaking numbers. And this is the published numbers. Wait till we get these machines. Wait till we get beyond video editing on these machines when people start using them to do other non-studio things on them. Because that's going to happen. Because that's what happened with the M1 and the M1 Max. People were like, oh, yeah, it's nice. And then they used it and they were like, wait a minute. Like, it's not just killing it on benchmarks. Like, we're actually doing normal tasks. And even gaming, some people are able to do some gaming, non-Mac OS gaming. They somehow ported Linux over or whatever, ran games. And they were like, the M1 is killing it.
It's been proving. And like I said, this is why I'm so... Like I got so excited, and like I really want to be able to find a way to make this part of my life. I chose not to go with the M1 mostly because I felt like it was just, in my opinion at least, I felt like it didn't really overdo what I needed. I already have, as you were saying, the gaming PC set up with everything kind of configured. But the M1 Max, mostly because it's like just around 2K, it's still a really good entry level considering what you get there over the performance and everything. And if you really want to take it to the next level, I really want to start seeing some actual like hands-on performance and, not just from, like you said, editing, which is for me primarily what is the 90% of it. I want to be able to find whatever way possible to reduce my render time. When I'm producing a 4K 60 frames per second video, 30 minutes, I don't want to spend an hour and a half waiting for it. And nothing else on the PC runs just because you're rendering and your GPU's literally doing all of that. But the numbers they were showing against discrete GPUs performance was crazy by comparison to the power draw. It's astronomical. So I'm really hoping we know it's going to do it. There's
they're
no
not
question.
like they've proven this.
This isn't the first time.
That's why I'm so gung ho about it, because I'm like we know this is real. And I'll give you a point of reference, like in terms of power use, right? Like, this is not new, but this is the second time I've flown to Europe with my MacBook Air M1. Now, to be clear, I don't have the base model with 7 GPUs. I've got the mid-range with 8 GPUs and 8 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. I didn't go for 16 gigs of RAM because at the time it was really hard to find. So, and I don't regret it because I have 16 gigs of RAM on all my Intel Macs, and I can open just as many tabs on 8 gigs on the M1 because memory management on ARM is way, way more efficient. So, here's the thing, guys. If you're listening to this, consider this. I was on a 10-hour flight from San Francisco to Frankfurt on my way out. Now, your first hour, you're taking off. In business class, you get the food served, blah, blah, blah. You don't really want to pull out your laptop because you're going to be interrupted. Once all that was settled, I pulled out the laptop. So about an hour and a half in, I pulled out the laptop and I used it for 8 hours to about 30 minutes before landing. And I walked out of that plane with 45% battery life left. Now, that's impressive, right? But here's the killer, TK. Here's what I did with that for 8 hours. Now, because internet connectivity via satellite works, but it's not the best, you can't really use Google Drive and use it reliably. So I was using Microsoft Word for writing. I was using Firefox for my preferred browser. Don't ask, it's complicated. I use Chrome as well. But I was using Firefox to surf the website, a few tabs open in the background. I had Audacity running, and I would spend at least 4 hours in there editing solid. And I did 2 movie edits, 2 videos in iMovie because it was a quick and dirty job. I didn't want to pull out Final Cut. And 10-minute videos took me about half an hour each to edit and render. And I used, 55% of my battery for 8 hours. Now, because it was an overnight flight, the cabin was very dim, so I was able to dim the brightness on my display quite a bit. I'm not one of those people who runs it super dim like some people do, but I definitely had dimmed it compared to my normal in my office use, right? So it was definitely running at a much more power efficient state. But man, like that is a 1-year-old Mac too, so the battery is already seeing some wear. And I'm like, holy crap, like that is stupid good performance,
I seriously, I wish for those hours because I had my Windows PC, the one we're talking on right now, and that one barely lasted about 2 hours, and I couldn't get it charged because the charging
port doesn't work.
Power draw on it was it wasn't too so. I got about maybe 2 hours worth of work, and I think when that was done, I just switched over to my tablet and started watching. And then I tried to sleep a little bit if I could, but I actually had the Berlin flight, so mine wasn't to Frankfurt. I ended up going to Berlin down to Barcelona.
Cool.
Due to rescheduling.
Right, you had some issues flight issues. Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Volkswagen ID Buzz, which is the other thing that, pardon the pun for the joke, but the other buzz of the week. Look, we're both EV folks, and I know there's a lot of listeners who are into EVs. I know this is a peripheral to mobile, but I think of cars as mobile devices you step into, especially modern cars, which are very technologically advanced, especially EVs, which are essentially a skateboard with a motor and a battery in it, and have a lot of software running the show and compute hardware running the show. So excuse us for a second as we have a little moment before we get back into phone news and wrap the show. If we both go and get excited about this, like anyone who's out there has got to admit that the Volkswagen microbus is an iconic thing, right? Like, I mean, it's evolved over the years. We're now at Gen 7 in Europe, Gen 6 on the market for the gas-powered hybrid, some hybrid versions out there. We never saw past the 4th generation in the US, which was the Eurovan here. Before that, we had the rear drive, rear engine models, which are the Westphalia boxy one you see in the US a lot, and then the more rounded one before that, and then the original with tons of windows around. This ID Buzz is kind of like taking this iconic design and refreshing it for the 21st century with a pure EV built from scratch on a electric platform. So none of the having to concern yourself with all that machinery taking up space. So you basically get a skateboard design. The thing is basically on the same platform as the ID4 and ID3, which are the small SUV and small hatchback that Volkswagen's already released. The ID4 is available in the US, the ID3 in Europe, and the ID4 as well. But the bottom line is it's now being completely revealed. We knew it was coming. We've seen it in camouflage. We'd never seen the inside. We'd never seen the fully revealed. And it exists. I'm actually going to South by Southwest in Austin tomorrow to see it in person. Volkswagen is my sponsor. I'm going to write a story for Tech Radar. But, I'm really excited because I own a Volkswagen van, a camper one, because not all of them are campers. Some of them are cargo vans, some of them are passenger vans, but in the US, people are mostly familiar with the Westphalias, the campers. I have one that's a Eurovan, and it's one of the early Eurovans, and it's fantastic. I love it to death. I keep it well maintained. It is a little cosmetically janky, but I like that because people don't think it's fancy, yet it's in really good shape mechanically. So, and of course, everything works in terms of being a camper. So, I'm looking forward to eventually replacing that with an EV-based camper. And so the reason I'm bringing up the ID Buzz is because this is a reveal of the European model, which is a short wheelbase passenger van and cargo van. And there will be a California, which is what Volkswagen calls their camper version in the last few generations. Used to be called Westphalia, now called California. There will be one of those coming to Europe and to the US. But the US, here's what's cool. We're getting a long wheelbase version of this van. Slightly longer, slightly bigger, more suited for our market. We're not getting the cargo version at all because chicken tax. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that we can't import panel vans. We can't import cargo vans in the US. They have to be built in the US. There's some kind of restriction there. Okay. And so, a lot of companies will actually ship vans in pieces and do the final assembly, like the 4 doors and the trunk and the hood, kind of thing in the US so they can get past this. Ford does that with the Transit Connect, which is a small transit van, for example. But the point is that forget the cargo version. This is the passenger version we're going to get, long wheelbase in the US. Starting in 2024, I mean, pre-orders then. I think it's a year earlier in Europe for their version, which is the short wheelbase. I don't know if the Europeans are going to get the long wheelbase version. The reality is that within 3 years, when my lease is up for my Tesla, we will have potentially the option in the US to get a camper version, the California. And frankly, that's got me super excited. So how do you feel about it?
I'm just excited for the fact that not only is the series of them. So for me, I go back with the original, back in the old days, back when I was really young, back in Lebanon, and that used to be my school bus. I used to go on a Volkswagen. I learned how to drive on a Volkswagen Beetle. Learning how to basically you have to push down the shift to reverse. That was my first surprise. Like I asked the guy, like, how do you go to reverse? Oh, you have to push down and go. I'm like, oh my god. So I have a lot of fond memories of Volkswagen and their presence in the automotive industry. The fact that we're seeing an EV model, I think this is the right move. Anybody that's listening right now, just go outside and look at your local gas station, how much gas is and how things are going. And you have an automatic feeling of like, I should have gotten an EV of some sort. the conversation, every company's putting a car out, but having something like that from Volkswagen pushing, moving forward, all EV, not hybrid, is telling you how much they're focusing on the future. And I think the reality is, I mean, we need more options in the automotive industry. Tesla, for me, it took me a while to jump on, but after talking, with Marianne, and we did a lot of conversation back and forth, and I got into it, and it's like ever since, man, it's been seriously like that's the way to go. So having that option, having new, I can't wait to see the pictures that you're going to post. I'm really, really jealous of that one. Just being able to check it out and check out cars that are not even out yet.
Yeah,
that's as exciting as mobile. So keep in mind, smartphones are great. Smartphones are sexy. Cars are becoming more and more technologically based. Mercedes did the same thing. Volkswagen's doing it. We've seen obviously Ford going on with all electric. Everybody's trying to catch up to Tesla, but in a certain way, I'm excited to see what we're seeing. And this is going to be obviously Gen 1, more to come. And I want to see obviously, the range, the performance, how people are actually going to, start using them in the US, because we need more options, especially here in California.
Yeah.
It helps.
So, just a few things to keep in mind for the audience. Look, it's not just about Tesla. Just because me and, TK have a Tesla, just don't immediately dismiss EVs, because there's, first of all, a lot more. I've been reviewing EVs for Tech Radar, and we're literally bombarded. Like, I cannot travel fast enough. After South by, I'm going to Palm Springs for a Volvo thing. After that, I'm going to Santa Monica for a Mercedes thing. I am literally traveling the rest of the month to cover EVs. There's so much new stuff coming. Some of it is very affordable. Don't get fooled that EVs cost a lot of money. Yes, up front they're a little more, but the prices are dropping. The maintenance is extremely low. The reliability is extremely high. The cost of operation is extremely low. And the satisfaction, the experience is extremely high. And this is not just a Tesla thing. This is any EV today that is modern is going to be a great experience. So, I know it's not everybody's ready. Like you're saying, well, of course you get it now because you are part of it, but you know how long it took you to dive in. And I've been talking on Facebook with some of my friends today because I posted a picture of the price of gas in San Francisco from, by the way, one of the San Francisco papers. So I didn't take the photo, but I put it up there, $6.43 a gallon. Okay. And that's the highest, I think, in the country.
Here. No, we got it here, Southern California.
Okay, you too?
We got this. We got $6.99. I didn't take the picture, but it's in downtown. They've been posting it. All of the news stations in Southern California, they've been going to that one gas station purely for the sign.
And mind you, I made a snarky comment. I'm not trying to be an elitist about it. I'm just pointing out that we're getting there, folks. There are some EVs coming that are much more affordable and are definitely going to please you and satisfy you. And if you haven't thought about it yet, you should. I've had a bit of pushback in my Facebook comments about it. It seems the lack of education, even amongst friends of mine who are technologically savvy, is staggering to me. Like, folks, go out there and read up on this. There's so much good info. How did you, you talk to me, but, I'm not the only one. I know you're a very,
absolutely
objective person. How did you get around in your head?
I did. So a while back, maybe a couple of years ago, before I decided to buy one, I rented one off of an app called Turo.
Yeah, Turo is
in
great.
Southern California. So I was always interested about it. I wanted to check it out. And most rental places don't have EVs. They all have
does now,
cars.
By the way.
Yeah, but I'm
back
saying what I meant is,
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, back then in 2017, I rented it for the weekend and we drove it around, and it wasn't even the performance model. It was just the base model, and we enjoyed it and it was a lot of fun. But I will be very honest with you, I had that battery anxiety, and that was always the thing that always sat in the back of my mind. I think we talked about it at the beginning. Once we started looking at numbers, and once I started kind of like seriously thinking about it and to talk about how long you've had it, Saf as well has had one for quite some time. So at this point, I started realizing, this is more of a, it's possible. If you're able to use it on a daily basis, Saf's able to be happy with it. I started looking at the option. I decided to go with the longer range, and I think that's what got me in, was the ability that I was able to get into that long range. And once I've gotten it, I've done a few trips with it to San Francisco, to Las Vegas, to San Diego. We go to Disneyland with it every once in a while. So to me, it's the car I want to be in all the time. Like we have a gas driving car, and that's mostly my wife's. But for us, whenever we're doing like local commute and stuff, it's the best way. Whole Foods in the area we have, it gives us free charging as well while we're shopping at Whole Foods. Magic Mountain for us here also allows us to charge our car, and that one's like at 31 miles an extra, so I can top off my car by just going and having fun at the theme park. So you start realizing, and you see that you have a support system. But I also think the biggest thing for me was the fact that I got a home charger. Had I not done the home charger, I think that may have gone a little bit different. But for me, I wake up in the morning and the car's ready and it's 100%.
It's just like your smartphone, yeah.
Well, yeah, 90%, not 100%,
yeah.
But yeah.
I don't have a home charger because I live in an apartment in San Francisco. I did have a home charger in my home in Portland back in the day when I had it. But honestly, I never really bothered going high power on that because I didn't drive much. I don't commute anywhere, so it's just more like drive around town. But right now I charge at free charging stations like you do, Whole Foods. In my case, there is a Volta one at the headquarters, just a few blocks away. Yeah, I can literally walk to it, leave my car for 2 hours, get 50 miles of charge. That's not a fast charger, obviously, but I can also go to a supercharger, several in town, in the city, and they're convenient. And at night, the prices are really low, so I go there sometimes. But back to the ID Buzz, I think what's got me excited is that this is not an SUV. It's like it's really a microbus. It's like the return of what will eventually become a camper van for most Americans, because I don't see Americans buying this as a people mover, right? Like that's in Europe for sure, right? Also, the current kind of entry level version of it is 300 miles, pretty good range, but it's rear wheel drive only, and it's 200 and something horsepower, so 0 to 60 9 seconds. We're not talking even Tesla's level of performance. We're talking entry level ID4 levels of performance. But it doesn't matter because it's a people mover or a camper. However, there will be an all-wheel drive version, and I can guarantee you the US will get the hot model because we're used to incredible performance in our normal cars. Like a Camry has 260 horsepower now, or 300 or whatever it is. And of course, our EVs here, Tesla's kind of set the bar that,
oh man, yes.
Any EV to me that has less than 0 to 60 in 6 seconds is slower than that. I'm kind of like, I don't want that because, even the Mini Cooper SE, which I reviewed for Tech Radar recently, you guys should check it out. It's the cheapest EV in the US, right? Like just over 30,000, and you get the incentives on top of that, and you get down to an incredible low price. Even that has a 0 to 60 of like 5.9 or 6.1. Like, so my point is, to me, there's a lot of potential with this thing, and so I'm excited about it. And, it's funny you mentioned the push down for reverse. My Eurovan is a stick shift, and it still has a push down for reverse,
Still there.
And you mentioned that, hybrids, the T7, which is the gas version of like the current upcoming latest microbus that's not the EV, has a hybrid version as well. So like they're doing it all. And it's going to continue. I mean, it'd be stupid for Volkswagen not to also have a gas version still of. No, it's not. Not the same vehicle, but of that category of vehicle, right?
They're still. We haven't done that full on transition to that, but I can definitely see the fact that we have an offering from every company, which a few years before was almost like unimaginable, where Tesla was just by itself for so long.
Exactly.
That's the thing that we need to realize. Charging stations are popping everywhere. You're starting to see them more and more everywhere, as far as being not only Tesla allowing other non-Tesla users to charge from them, but the ecosystem and the support system that we used to feel kind of like stuck in is opening up and becoming more functional. And I think that's what's going to help people just get over and feel maybe even comfortable doing cross-state trips, maybe going down to Arizona or, like I said, going to Vegas. That was a fun ride with the family in a Tesla. So it was nice.
I've gone all over the West Coast in the last 4 years in my Tesla. And I think with Electrify America being a Volkswagen driven thing, that bus is going to have some good options for charging as well, especially since they've really been doubling down on making more happen. We're kind of running out of time, but I want to quickly hear your thoughts on this thing here.
Sure.
If it pops up in the video for my Patreons. The Poco.
So I'll do it on my side. Yeah, here.
X4 Pro 5G. And you've got it outside the case, so it's even prettier. Look, we don't have a huge amount of time, but I want to say that phone is very impressive for the money. What is it, $300 something?
It's about $300, about 270 or so euros. But the bang for the buck with this Poco is just seriously like I don't want to say flagship killer per se, but the reality is they've been working at it and they've been doing it, and they released a couple of phones, but the X4 with the 108 megapixel camera does give us a really good experience. 120 hertz refresh rate, large display, fast charging, with
AMOLED, right?
watt AMOLED as well.
What's
stereo
the chip
speakers.
again?
It's the 695, the Snapdragon 695.
Oh, right.
5G.
That's right. It's one of the first 695s with the 5G. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I love it. I'm feeling very good about it. I've always felt good about the Poco X series in general, but this one is really making me happy. So, you know, check it out, folks. I have an unboxing video on my channel.
Absolutely.
I'll link to TK's video as well. I wish we had more time to dive into it, but the reality is that Poco and Xiaomi Group in general, because I think Redmi is doing some good stuff as well, is still really pushing the envelope. I want to point out a couple of things that stand out to me about this phone and the Redmi and also Realme offerings that are coming out in this $200 to $300 price point range. Mm-hmm. There is or even Vivo, there is a kind of industrial design switch happening in the industry to everybody doing slab-sided phones like the iPhone. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed that?
Yep.
And
the Flex
from all these brands. But more importantly, have you noticed that the newest affordable phones that have AMOLED displays like the Poco X4 Pro 5G have a lot of chin? It looks like in their attempt to democratize OLED and bring it down to a lower price point, they are actually doing a cool thing where they are like, okay, we're going to save some money by giving you a little more of a chin, kind of like an LCD would. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure it's a good thing. I'm not on board 100%, but I feel like if it's going to give you an OLED instead of an LCD for that price point, 100% on board, right?
Oh, not only that, 120 hertz refresh rate on a device like this, crazy. At this price point, absolutely. It's a small sacrifice, and it gets it more affordable, and it makes it even more competitive, obviously, for the next generation. We want to be able to get more of that technology, more affordability. Again, the amount of features that we have in here with that main sensor in the back, I feel like it's a great, well-rounded smartphone at a budget price point. And again, when you look at the price and you say the word OLED, you'll take it in any way, honestly, that you're able to get it, even if it didn't have 120, and we do have that. So out of all the devices, I feel like the X4 Pro 5G is going to hit it, and it works really nicely. I've been using it here on T-Mobile. I mean, no 5G, unfortunately, for me, but it's still pretty decent 4G connectivity on us here, so not bad.
100%. Yeah. A couple of leaks and rumors to finish the show here.
Yeah.
We've heard rumors and leaks, well, rumors at least, of the Nothing phone from Carl Pei's Nothing company that gave us the cool looking transparent earbuds. Yep. And now we have a leak. We have a leak of, a blurry photo of the phone. We have a leak of presumably Carl Pei showing Mr. Qualcomm CEO a phone that seems heavily camouflaged in a case. So, like,
there was a lot of that at MWC. I was going to say, I'm sure.
Right. I just feel that the rumors are true, and we're going to see. I mean, the moment Carl Pei left, I knew that we're going to get a phone. Like, to me, I'm like, earbuds, come on.
It's inevitable. Yeah, no, I mean, and then when they first came out with the earbuds, I was like, really?
Nice, but everybody can make a pair of earbuds.
Yeah,
Give us something to sink our teeth into, and think about it, right? Carl engineered the Nord, and the original Nord, of course, and it was an incredible phone. And somehow, if OnePlus, if you look at the track record for 2021, it wasn't great, but the Nord 2 stands out as one of the best phones they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so at least somebody at OnePlus is still kind of following in the legacy of what Carl Pei gave us with the original Nord.
Yeah.
And more importantly, Carl left immediately. It had to be a phone at some point. So we don't know anything, but it's very clearly going to be a Snapdragon-equipped smartphone of some kind, probably with some translucent accents.
Cristiano's, if he's showing it to Cristiano, obviously we know,
Cristiano Amon, who's the CEO of Qualcomm, is the other person in that photo. Anyway.
Yeah, sorry. When you said Mr. Qualcomm, I assumed Cristiano.
Yeah, of course, it's Mr. Qualcomm. I like to call him that.
Yeah.
Yes, I love it when people call me Ms. Miriam. It happens. It's cute. I love it. I don't mind at all. All right. So that's one rumor. The other, leak rumor, Pixel 6a and Pixel Watch rumors are intensifying. Obviously, I'm not sure we're going to see it at Google I/O per se. I'm don't think we'll see it as late as we did last year
I
because
hope
of
not.
COVID
Yeah, I'm
and
hoping-
supply issues.
Yeah.
But it's obvious we have a Pixel 6a coming and a Pixel Watch probably as well. And so the latest is that, of course, we know that it was going to have the Tensor chip. Some benchmarks have come out, 6 gigs of RAM. So that's all confirmed. It looks like a hybrid between a Pixel 6 and a Pixel 5a in the sense that it has the older camera system but it has the industrial design and the newer brain, as it were, from the
Geordie
Pixel
LaForge
6.
kind of look, but some of the leaks are kind of talking about it. But the reality, we need that successor. We need to see how that kind of goes through. And last year, we know that there was no longer going to be a smaller and a larger version of the Pixel 5, the A series. Hopefully, we'll see how that kind of continues this year. But the price point is going to be the biggest thing. So the 400 to 450 type price point, I'm hoping they stick to that. And maybe we'll see some information about it around maybe right after Google I/O. I'm hoping this year is going to be an in-person, as the trend seems to be going. So we'll have to see how that kind of goes. We need to see the A series. The A series is very popular for Google and it's been doing great. So hopefully
it's so good.
Yeah,
it's so good. Like, folks, if I had a budget to follow, because I get all my phones for free from reviewing them, I would be probably buying a 5A right now or a 6A when it comes out, because like the 4A before that was phenomenal too. And they just keep improving them. And they're not particularly special phones if you look at the spec sheet or you look at their industrial design. But then when you start using them, it's like Apple, right? That layer of software that Google just sticks on there just brings it up to the next level. It's like cranks everything up to 11 in terms of satisfaction and delight, It's hard to explain until you experience it. It's kind of like in EV. It's hard to explain until you experience it. But take our words for it. EVs are a thing. Pixel A series phones are a thing.
Yes.
And I think to some extent that iPhone SE 2022 is a thing. It might not be for you. It might not be the right phone for you, but so many people are going to buy it. And having an iPhone at that accessible price point with 5G is a game changer for a ton of people.
And Touch ID, which is a big differentiator for this lineup, because it's the only Touch ID device that's coming out. And that's the biggest difference here. We need to start seeing and appreciating what they're doing. And like I said, I'm very happy that they're continuing this the series, that they're not just ending it. And like you said, $30 more, maybe a little bit too much for some, but at the end of the day, it's an entry-level iPhone at a price point that we don't see iPhones play around. So it's nice to see that they have it. Yeah.
I mean, Verizon was giving me in that email from George $11.26 a month. Like, come on, guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you do a trade in into it, because I tried to put in my trade in for the SE 2020. Now they gave you about 150. You could drop the price down even lower if you're able to trade in a device into it, which. Yeah, that's the main thing you want to keep in mind. Trade-ins are going to be the biggest thing with any carrier or even any OEM. Samsung did the same thing. I'm sure Apple would love to be able to upcycle some of those, as they're using the same panel. So in theory, it could be beneficial to recycle and bring into more devices in the future.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, look at us. We summarized it all in this nice little blurb at the end. We're good.
Yeah.
TK, you want to tell folks where they can find you on the internet, all your social media handles and various sites and YouTube and all that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. OnlyFans that's a different episode. Just TK Bay on YouTube and TKDSL8655 on the rest of the socials. But the best way I always say, just, let the beard guide you. Just look for TK Bay and it's hard to miss. So yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, folks. Please subscribe to TK's YouTube channel and, of course, all of his social media stuff. And you know where to find me on the internet. I'm at Tankgirl, that's TNKGRL, on Instagram and on Twitter. If you want to discuss this podcast with both of us, hit us up on Twitter, ask us your questions, your comments, all that good stuff. You want to see pretty pictures of phones, pretty pictures of cars, pretty pictures of things taken with phones, because that's all I really do. Check out my Instagram. And then, of course, the couple of YouTube channels you should subscribe to, youtube.com/mobiletechpodcast and youtube.com/mobiletechmore. Those are my YouTube channels. The first one is really about the phones and audio and kind of immediate peripherals, smartwatches, stuff like that. The second one is kind of more about the rest of it. Car tech, home automation, home tech, travel tech, all the cool little things that I think are interesting that people are not necessarily directly kind of like touching the phone world, but are related because everything's connected these days. So check it out. You know how to use YouTube. Like, subscribe, click the little notification icon, comment. You can comment about the podcast, even if it's off topic. I'll respond there as well. No problem at all. So see you on YouTube. The podcast lives at mobiletechpodcast.com. We're on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Spotify, everywhere good podcasts can be found. If you're old school, there's an RSS feed. You've got it all covered. Your apps, if they let you rate or review the show, please do that. It helps other people discover the show. So yeah, consider all that. And of course, Patreon. There's a Patreon. What do you get? Well, you get a video version of the podcast before everyone else, before the public audio version. And also, I don't edit it as much. You kind of get the outtakes and the mistakes and the fun stuff.
Oh, no.
So, no, don't worry. I mean, there's really nothing too bad most of the time. But the point is, if you want to watch this podcast as a video, that's one of the tiers. There's also a Discord server you can join as another tier. There's a bunch of stuff. If you can help me, that would be great. This is one of the ways I make this show happen. It's with Patreon. So consider joining Patreon. I want to thank my existing patrons, and I want to thank David L., who actually joined this week. Thanks, David. That was really nice of you. Yeah, folks, we'll see you over there. Patreon.com/tankgirl, patreon.com/TNKGRL. If you don't want to do Patreon and you still want to help and contribute financially, there's a PayPal link in the show notes. You can click on that, click through, give me enough money to buy a coffee. Maybe. I love coffee, so that'll make me happy. But yeah, folks, help out if you can. I'd appreciate it. And also, if you want to help, another way is through our sponsor, Audible. Audible has been with us since the early days. They're a fantastic sponsor. If you like books as much as I do and, like to listen to books instead of read them, Audible's got you covered. That's what they do. They're the number one platform for audiobooks. So there is a special deal, 30-day free trial. You get to keep a book at the end. audibletrial.com/mobiletech is the URL. That's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. Look, I work on my computer all day. My eyes get tired at the end of the day. I want to take a break. If I don't watch Netflix on a big screen so I can focus further away, then, I'm reading a book and it's just tiring because I'm still focusing up close, even if it's a Kindle or whatever. So Audible's to the rescue. I just lay back, close my eyes, listen to that book being read to me. They have a ton of books to choose from. A lot of books are read by the authors. They have short stories. They have podcasts. I mean, they have the whole gamut. So check it out. Road trips. We're talking about taking our EVs and even a camper van or a road trip. Well, guess what? You put some Audible on, you can still drive and pay attention to the driving, yet listen to the great book being read. So I love Audible. So obviously they've been our sponsor for a while, and I keep them around because they're so good. So go help them, help us. audibletrial.com/mobiletech. I want to thank Audible again for being with us forever. And TK, thanks for being on the show yet again.
Oh, absolutely. Always a pleasure. And really, really excited to see some of your coverage tomorrow from, once you get to South by Southwest, for sure.
Yeah, there'll be some stuff on social right away, but it'll take a little while for me to get my stories out. But yeah, stay tuned, folks. We'll have another show next week. We'll have TK on at some point in the future. You know that. So we'll see you then. And until then, folks, cheers, everybody.
Au revoir.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tank Girl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.